graduated. Welcome back to RidgeSide K9 EC Radio.
Yeah, man. What's been up? How have things been?
Good. Just graduated a bunch of dogs and got a whole bunch of new ones in, and they're flying through training. I actually got 4 out of 5 shepherds right now.
That's annoying. Could be annoying.
Yeah. One's a 5-month-old, 2-year-old that we've done puppy program on.
Oh, nice. Did they keep up with the training in between?
Yeah. The black shepherd.
Oh,
that
thing's easy.
Yeah, he's been here for like a week, and like he literally came in day 2. He was like, let's go off leash.
Yeah.
And
Those are my favorite because you can just spend 10 minutes layering in the e-collar, and the dog already understands everything, and it's just teaching them the new communication, and then just have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So what do you want to talk about today?
I figured we can shift it towards a little bit of helping an owner through some struggles. You know, if they're struggling with their dog, pulling them, if they're struggling with their dog, not coming back when they're calling their name, Fido, 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 come,
please.
come please.
Get the F over here.
Yeah. No, we can do, I was thinking about just going over some simple tips.
Love it. So I think we'll just knock out like the biggest complaints that we get from or why people seek out training. I think the number one thing doing all the sales calls and the evaluation has got to be pulling on the leash.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not coming back. It depends. People who don't have yards that have to walk their dog, like 50% of our clients that live in townhouses or apartments, especially down in like the Wilmington area, I would say leash pulling is number one. Then when you get rural areas or neighborhoods with yards, coming back is probably number one.
Right.
So let's break it down. What is leash pulling? Why does it happen? How do you fix it? Do you know how to fix it?
So typically, the most common thing that you'll see is like the dog is on whatever leash it is, but it's either attached to a harness or attached to the flat collar. And there's a lot of different avenues to it, but starting, if we're just gonna hit it from one side first, it would be the tool. And at a pet store, at a normal pet store, that flat collar, that little ID tag collar, is nothing of substantial, structure or integrity, but in a way, it does what we call is an agitation collar. Like on the other side of the field, we call the flat collars the agitation collars.
Right.
So like when the dog has that small pressure on the front of their throat, it creates a kind of imbalance of you want the dog to stay near you, but you putting that pressure on the dog, just like if I was to push you on your shoulders, your instinct is to stand upright and push against that pressure. So with a dog, that flat collar is doing that same thing. You don't want them to go anywhere, but on the other side of it, we're going to get into like engagement and caring and wanting to be around you. Your dog doesn't care. Your dog doesn't want to be around you. Like they have no interest in you. You never give them positive feedback. You never reward them for being near you. So they already want to like go out and see other things. So once they immediately hit the ground running and want to go see something else, that pressure at the end of the leash, at the end of the 6 foot or whatever it is, they feel that pressure, and then now they're being resisted against going what they want to go to, which drives them more to pull harder.
Yeah.
And then also that like oppositional reflex of that pressure on their throat makes them want to like stay balanced, which just essentially drives them forwards, and then you're pulling back and then drives them forwards. A lot of times owners will like have their dog choking out and gasping for air while they're doing that, and then they'll switch them to the harness, which again, harnesses were designed for dogs to pull on. So it's just improper education of a tool that you're using can be why your dog is pulling you. And then also the engagement side of it, the give a fuck factor, like your dog doesn't give a fuck about you. So they want to go see everything else, which can also either just be, genetic or behaviorally, or like just out of curiosity, or you've taught your dog to pull in the sense of you've given them, like not only have you not given them stuff to care about you for, but you've given them stuff to care about everything else for. Like you let them do X, Y, and Z. Like you let them sniff every mailbox, or you let them do whatever, or you let them greet every single person they see in a store or on a sidewalk. So
yeah, I think that's one of the biggest points right there. We'll unpack that is you have a dog that's frustrated, doesn't understand anything about like the leash. It's this completely foreign object to it. We snap it on and then expect them to understand what to do. It just like any tool, right? It can be halter or gentle leader, whatever, like the nose dumb leashes
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
prong collars, e-collars, anything. There is no magical thing. So you have to teach the dog. And what we see commonly is clients accidentally teach the dog to do the wrong thing, right? So you have a dog that wants to go pee on a mailbox or pee on a fire hydrant or go see another dog, and you're trying your best to hold it back. And then the dog gets frustrated and then tries harder, and then you eventually give up, right? So you're kind of rewarding the maximum effort by giving the dog exactly what it wants
Right.
at the point where it's the most frustrated.
Yeah,
So,
it's like, oh, like once I pulled this hard, I was able to get to it. So
Correct.
like the next time that I want to go that way, I'm just gonna skip the like light pulling, and I'm just gonna
go balls in
because I know that gets me the reward the fastest.
Yeah, and you see that a lot with like children too, right? If raising two toddlers, 5 and 3, if my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old doesn't really throw like off the wall temper tantrums anymore. Typically, you can figure out why he's pissed. But my 3-year-old just trying to figure out emotions. If he was maximum effort, just melting down in a store because I said no, and then I was that parent that was like, I don't want to look like a maniac. I don't want to have that kid that's crying on the floor, screaming, just disrupting everybody's time. So I just give him whatever he was throwing a temper tantrum about just to end it. The next time he hears the word no, or the next time he wants something and I'm hesitant, he just would instantly jump into psycho mode because that was what was effective. So,
or you might not even tell him no at all, just because you know what might come as well.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just a learning thing. So how we fix that is, number one, I think there's an imbalance of the dog respecting the owner. So the dog doesn't really want to be around the owner, which kind of sounds counterintuitive. Most, every dog loves their owner if you take care of it. Like it's a thing. You have a relationship with the dog, but there's no value to it. And what I mean by that is, if you give the dog everything it wants because it makes you feel good and the dog doesn't have to earn it, then the dog is just learning, petting is not valuable because I can get it whenever I want.
Right.
Food's not valuable because I take it for granted. It's always going to be there. So restructuring how the client and the dog interact with each other, it has to be a value-based relationship is step one. How do you teach your clients to work through that?
So like if the dog, like, and we hit everything from a lot of different angles, like like you said, either the tool itself isn't a quick fix all. Same thing for like actually how to get your dog to stop pulling. It's not this one sentence. It's a combination of, we can teach, through teaching sit down, place, through doing whatever, through building engagement, through rewarding neutrality. I'm giving my dog markers. I'm giving my dog feedback and understanding of what is acceptable behavior and what is unacceptable behavior by being able to mark what I want and give a consequence, whether it's something of value that's good or something of value that's, unwanted. But when it comes down to on leash, first we're going to set them up with the right gear, either a prong collar or a slip lead. So that way now we can communicate in a positive way to the dog with good feedback and with, an adverse or uncomfortable feedback, whether it's the leash pressure or whatever we're doing. And the first thing that I ultimately love doing is, if I can loose leash shape a dog in front of me to give into pressure, like I don't need to walk them in a tight heel from the very beginning, but like I'm going to loose leash shape them to feeling pressure ahead of me, guiding them back to me. Like we can essentially work recalls first.
I think that what you're essentially trying to say is just teaching the dog what the leash means.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Like teaching them leash manners first before you teach them to heel.
Yeah. And I'm not even like, when we say manners, like the longer I've been doing this, I like the show we were listening to the other day. Tom Davis, if you're listening, shout out to your show with Katie Matthews.
He just reshared my story. I took a picture of like,
oh no shit,
Copper and us like placing and watching it. I like tagged No Bad Dogs and they reshared it.
My guy,
yeah.
Give us a shout out. But he was talking about it, and I think I'm on the same wavelength as far as how he kind of progressed in his career. Is specifically with Katie Matthews. I started out dumb, right? And then I went like super nerdy and got into all the jargon and learned as much as I could. But now I find myself like words and cliches and trying to sound, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but like you just hear people try to talk eloquently about it, and they talk like on a PhD level. To me, I don't really care about any of that shit anymore. I just train dogs. So we got to teach the dog exactly what the leash means.
Right.
And by that, it's just basically, if you feel the leash get tight, then submit to it in a sense, right? Just take a step. You can turn that annoying thing off, right? You can turn that tightness off. And then just systematically over time, I decrease the amount of room that the dog has to mess around at the end of the leash. And then I make sure it's right next to my left leg.
Right. And well, one of the biggest things there is when that leash does get tight, what most people do is they give into the pressure. You know, like the leash got tight because either you walked the opposite direction or your dog walked the opposite direction. And then when that pressure's on, one of you is going to learn how to turn the pressure off.
Yep.
Which typically the owner learns how to turn pressure off is to like
give into the dog.
Give into the dog. Whereas we're just going to flip flop that. Like I'm going to hold my steady pressure. And obviously I want to entice them. Like I'm not just going to like use pressure. I want to have both ends of the spectrum. So like I'm going to entice my dog, showing them because like they just don't know. Right. Yeah. That's why the dog is dragging you, because they don't know to turn around.
And I think a key point at this phase is allowing the dog to learn and make that decision, right? Like I'm a pretty big dude. I can drag every single dog around. But even if I'm training a 3-pound Chihuahua, like I put as minuscule amount of leash pressure on it, and then I just wait for the dog to make a decision. And then as soon as it makes a decision that I want, the leash pressure goes away. And then that in itself is rewarding because the dog's not being annoyed anymore. And then if I have the right dog and I can reinforce with food, play, whatever, toys, then the dog gets like a double reward in that sense. Yeah.
And like with doing that, like I do that a lot at handoffs is I'll get the dog on the leash and I'll hold the owner's dog while we're talking. And I'm teaching them leash manners, teaching them to be calm on a leash to where like the owner is standing with their dog in the very beginning and that dog's tight leash at the end of it, sniffing in every direction.
Yeah.
And like the owner's like bobbing and weaving because their dog's pulling them everywhere. And then I'll say, hey, like, you know, put the slip leash on, give me the dogs. And, you know, like as we're doing the handoff, and I'll take that dog and I'm standing upright. The owner's still talking to me. And every time that dog's going somewhere, they're feeling leash pressure. I'm not giving into it. Eventually the dog is. And then by the end of that 10-minute conversation with the owner, you know, whenever they're ready to say goodbye to their dog, you know, the dog is sitting next to my side, super loose leash. And it happens like in a matter of minutes. But over that like 10 or 15-minute conversation with them, the owner's eventually like, I've never really seen him act this calm around somebody else before. Like I've never seen him like be so like neutral. And I'm like, yeah, like I was just training him for the past 10 minutes. Like you didn't really understand it. You didn't really know what I was doing.
There's communication going both directions at that point. So I think one of the easiest drills somebody completely novice who has a dog that pulls on a leash can do is go to like a tennis court or something where there's nothing going on, right? Not a lot of distractions for the dog. Or even if you have like an empty room in your house or you want to start it in the house, something simple. And how I kind of do it is whether I'm using tools or not, whether it's a slip leash, a prong collar, e-collar, it doesn't really matter. The tool doesn't matter. The concept is when I'm walking, I counterbalance what the dog's doing. So if the dog wants to go, north, I'm going to turn around and go south. Yeah. If the dog wants to go west, I'm going to go east. And then that's just a fluid communication. And I look like a crazy person out in the neighborhood doing it because I'm
constantly turning,
just sporadically turning, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And then eventually the dog learns to just check in and pay attention to what I'm doing. And then that's when I start heavily like rewarding the dog. I'll stop and play with it when it makes the right decision to stay next to me.
Right. And like one of the big things there is like if you have a 8-week-old puppy, you can lure, you can free shape, and you can feed into the heel a lot differently than if you have that 3-year-old dog that's been pulling its whole life, and now you have to change and basically counter condition the pulling, right? So instead of just shaping a new behavior, you have to counter condition that old behavior of pulling. So like you said, the pressure goes on first. And then once the dog realizes where there's no pressure, now then they can find out where there's value. Because if I have my dog on the end of the leash and they're just pulling, my treats mean nothing. Like my treats, my rewards, me touching them, me giving them a steak, like they're going to fly by my steak and like go just because it's instinctual for them or it's habitual for them at that point to keep pulling, and the treats aren't going to have any value. But once that pressure teaches them, you know, what's comfortable, what's uncomfortable, then where they're sitting where it's comfortable, they're not physically as anxious, so then they can mentally not be as anxious, like as a byproduct. Kind of like, you know, when you shake like one of your buddies who's having a panic attack, you like shake them, you slap them, like, hey man, like, you know, like snap out of it. Like once you physically interrupt them, now you can mentally interrupt them. So same thing for the dog is I can physically interrupt my dog, and then once they're physically calm, now I can mentally calm them down, and then I can mentally stimulate them in a positive way with that food as a reinforcement. One big thing that like either in the dog training side of it or the pet owner who's teaching it side of it, like if you're interested in self-training your dog to not pull, one piece of advice I would say is like, every dog's kind of different, but I always steer away from teaching a heel for the first couple days while I'm more so reinforcing a recall. A lot of times on the flip-flop side of it is if you teach a heavy heel for the first week or so, like as a board and train trainer, then when you're trying to proof recall, the dog's never leaving your side. Because you've like either reinforced or corrected whatever the situation is to where the dog is now like healing perfectly, right?
I see that a lot with you have so like the dog sport community, right? You have people get these really high drive working dogs, and they have aspirations for the dog to be independent, strong, and do, you know, things like send the dog 200 yards to bite somebody or whatever. And then they can never correct the dog, but if they overdo obedience, and I don't like saying that, but if they make, you know, being around them too valuable, then the dog will never independently go seek out stuff on its own. Right. Because why would you? If I know like the food is really good at this restaurant, and I'm kind of this way, like I go to a handful of restaurants and every single time I literally order the exact same thing. Like I don't know how many years I've been going to Jersey Mike's, and a lot. I've only had 2 sandwiches there. Yeah. And one was by mistake. So like they screwed up the order and I ate it. Yeah. But outside of that, like creature of habit. So if you overdo the value next to you, you can decrease the dog's independence. And I see this like sport world, police work, and even the couple of lessons where I was doing dogs that have been in PSA or done heavy sport world, and then they just wanted to try scent stuff. They're very confused because they never had to like think independently before. And now I'm asking the dog to do something and they're like, please help me. I don't know what to do because I've never had to use my brain before. Yeah. I've just been taught like to be obedient, which is good. Just think about it. So key to this is teach your dog what you want the leash to do or what it means, make it enjoyable, and take it one step at a time.
Yeah. And I'd say like on the advanced side of it, one fault that I do see a lot of times is people try to, like you were saying, you like walk through the street or walk through a parking lot or a tennis court, whatever it is, and you're just like switching directions. That's a big part of, I've heard it called like the tugboat method or the like tree method, which I'm going to get into, but like on the wrong side of it, I'll see people just correcting their dog for not healing as the like way to teach it. Like if you just start walking and you just start, you know, like not slow, steady leash pressure to where the dog gives in, but it's like a correction kind of a leash pop. Yeah. You know, if the dog has never healed with you before, whether it's your own personal dog or if it's a training dog, you know, you can't just have a dog at your side. Once they walk out, pop, pop, they move out, pop, pop, they move out, pop, pop. Because, you know, I get what you're trying to teach. Like you're trying to teach the dog not to be out there. Yeah. But if it's their first time on leash with you, they don't understand the distance yet. All their understanding is like, it sucks walking with you. Like, like not that it sucks 4 feet in front of you. It just sucks being around you in general. And you don't want to create that unfair relationship with them.
Yeah. It may look like it works, right? Like if you look at the face value of what you can do, you can certainly get the dog to walk next to you that way.
Oh yeah. You can make them.
I did it all the time in my early police career. That was how we, you know, taught heel. but the dog was doing it out of fear of leaving your side, not necessarily because the dog wanted to be right next to you and like enjoyed the process. So you have to create that healthy balance of like, it's cool to be next to me, but it's also cool for you just to be a dog and do your thing.
Right. And like to kind of avoid the conflict with you, like my favorite analogy that I try to teach clients a lot is if you chained your dog to a tree and they had 20 foot of line, you know, and it's their first time that you clipped them in, you walk away and they see a squirrel running across the street, right? They're going to run as fast as they can at that squirrel. They're going to hit the end of that 20 foot line, like get snapped back and go, holy shit, like what just happened? They're going to look back at the tree and realize that they have 20 feet of line attached to them. And they're going to themselves realize, oh shit, I need to not do that again. Like
I got 19 feet and 3/4 inches.
Yeah. So like the next time that squirrel comes, they're going to bolt, but they're going to like put on the brakes right before the end of that leash because they taught themselves what gap they have. The tree didn't teach them. The person who tied them up to the tree didn't teach them. The dog taught themselves. And that's kind of where, like when I'm teaching heel, like I'm not talking at all because I don't want any communication. Like I'm saying good and rewarding, whatever it is. But when that dog's feeling pressure or like either before the pressure, after the pressure, I'm not like negatively marking it because I don't want the dog to think I have anything to do with it. Like when you know, some people call it like, I forgot my phone method. Like as you're walking straight, they're like, oh, I've got my phone in the car.
Right.
And you do that like 180 turn and then like the dog feels that leash pressure and then they come back towards you or you're like zigzagging, whatever it is. So like,
I don't know why my brain just went off on a tangent, but we're going to market a new training method. How you teach your dog your heel is like, you got to take shit. Like,
yeah, oops, I gotta go take a shit. Yeah, and like, you know, like, so like you do that 180, but with you with you not saying anything, you not giving any feedback to the dog. If the dog is like, you know, walking ahead of you and you do that immediate turn, the dog's gonna get to the end of that leash, feel that pressure, turn around and go, what the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And if all they see is your back, it's like in their head, it's, oh shit, like this dude who's attached to me turned around and then I felt pressure when he turned around or when she turned around. So after repetitions, it's like, maybe I should pay more attention to them. Like, cause now the tree moves, right? Like, so like not only am I attached to that tree and not only is it now not a 19-foot chain, but it's a, you know, 2 foot, 3 foot, whatever leash. But now that tree also moves. So I need to pay attention to wherever this tree is in time and space. Cause if they move forward, I need to be with them because I have that 3 foot of leash. Or if they turn around or if they stop, I need to make sure I stop because I don't want to, again, hit that barrier. So it's just an easy way to avoid the conflict and avoid the fear by just teaching the dog that it's their initiative, it's their prerogative to pay attention to you where like they don't have a relationship. Like, again, like with a trainer or even with an owner where the dog has no engagement on you.
Yeah.
But then from there, being able to feed into that. Because like now I have my dog who still loves me, still cares about me. There's no hard feelings about why it felt those pressures because it realized it did it itself. So now it's just paying attention to me because it realizes it kind of has to. Otherwise, it's going to feel weird on their own fault. And then now I can start paying them because now, you know, there's value to that. There's no hard feelings between me. You know, because like if you correct a dog and then try to feed it, they're like, you know, screw you. Like I don't want to be near you. Like you just corrected me. So it keeps that hand feeding open. It keeps that relationship open and it keeps it all happy. But most of all, it's just, you know, reps, patience, you know.
Patience is the big thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, out of all the things that we work on with dogs, as far as like the basic concepts, I think leash walking is probably one of the easiest.
Oh yeah. And case by
the
case,
basis of it.
Yeah, like some dogs like who are superiorly anxious and whatever it is, or superiorly aggressive or drivey towards certain things. But I tell owners, I'm like, after you walk out of here in 5 minutes,
the dog's going to be nice, and then it's just a matter of just making it work through a bunch of random stuff, right? Like taking it to different places and boardwalks, beaches, game trails, as long as there's no bear traps.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, I like this. I think we'll do a bunch more of these short little how-to ones.
I'm all about it.
Love it. So let's wrap this one up, and we'll come back.
All right.
Where can people find you on the line?
On the gram is rsk9nc.greg, And then the store is RS K9 Training Supplies.
We got battle on YouTube going right now between who comments the most on videos. It's between Greg and Katie.
Solid.
Yeah. All right. You can find me at RidgeSide K9 Eastern Carolina, and then Mike_Sport Check.
All right.
Don't forget to share and subscribe.
Yep.
For sure. Leave a comment. We'll see you on the next one.
Later.